Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Welcome to Disrupt and Innovate, the podcast where we challenge the status quo and explore groundbreaking ideas in various fields. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Debra Roberts. She is a true communication expert with a passion for helping individuals and organizations elevate their communication skills to achieve elevated profits. With her diverse background and extensive experience, she brings a unique perspective to the table. As a columnist at Inc.com, Debra shares her insights on effective communication strategies that can lead to business success. She's the founder of the Communication Protocol, where she helps clients refine their communication methods to foster better relationships and boost productivity. Debra's Master's of Social Work from Virginia Commonwealth University equips her with a solid foundation in psychology, counseling, and program development. Her diverse skill set includes interpersonal communication, public speaking, and conflict resolution, as well as social media management. Her ability to navigate complex dynamics and uncover innovative solutions makes her an invaluable resource for those seeking to disrupt communication's traditional methods. I'm thrilled to have Debra joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and challenged as we explore the power of communication in driving innovation. Stay tuned for an insightful conversation filled with game-changing ideas. Debra, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have this chat today. I do a formal read-in and give everybody the structured kind of view on who you are, but that's not the good story. Would you take us on your journey and tell us, take us through your experience, how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So my background is I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am also trained in something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is a big name for a form of trauma treatment. And so I'm certified in that, as well as I'm a business consultant. And I've been doing all of those things for many decades. I also, early in my career, worked in a lot of nonprofit organizations right in the trenches. I was the person meeting the kid who wanted to run away and saying, don't go. It's 2:00 in the morning. You're at a train station. So I've been in the trenches. I know what makes people connect, what makes them have a conflict. And what I found was in all of these different settings, the same combination of factors made a difference. When they learned how to talk to the people around them, how to communicate differently in a way that made sense to them as well, so that they were more comfortable, everything changed. The quality of their life changed. And so I started using this, and I realized it over and over. I was saying the same kinds of things, regardless of the setting, whether I was talking to an organization, to a small team, a huge team, or two business owners that couldn't sit in the same room, or someone who wanted to get divorced, because I was working with all different populations. And once I realized that I was kind of saying the same thing to all these people, a little bit of a tweak difference depending on the audience, I wrote it down. I'd been doing it for 20 years before I wrote a stitch down, but I wrote it down, and ultimately it became a model that I did a lot of due diligence on. I figured somebody else must have done this because it's so practical and logical. And I called it the Relationship Protocol. I ended up writing a book. At the time, I didn't even want to put my name on it. I wanted to just get it out into the world. I had no idea how to write a book or what to do. I wasn't very keen on social media at the time even, but I knew this was important and it could make a difference in people's lives. And so that's what I did. So that's where it started. I now am very involved in the workplace and helping organizations to improve and elevate their communication, as well as individuals and personal relationships, more on a kind of a side note.
That's absolutely fabulous. And right in that thread, in the experience, right, the reality is communication is a human experience. It does not matter whether it's professional or personal, teenager, adult, right? The ability to communicate effectively is, strangely in this day and age, disruptive because we don't all do it well.
Well, here's the reason. It's never been a priority. If you think about growing up. I don't know your background, but most people did not grow up in homes where good communication was modeled or recommended. It was, go say you're sorry to your sister, or, something like that. Well, however conflicts were resolved. But think about it, in school, even in business school, they don't teach communication. And if you don't know how to communicate, you're not going to be successful. Every successful person will tell you that you have to know how to talk to the people around you, to collaborate with them, work with them, deal with them, whether they're challenging or not, to be successful in your personal life, in your intimate relationships. And no one teaches it. And the more I've been out talking to people, the more I realize how important my work is, because I don't see communication as complicated. I see it as logical and practical. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect at it either, by the way, so don't test me. But, it's really something that anybody can learn. Anybody can feel more equipped, which is the most important thing. That's, to me, how you disrupt.
Absolutely. Right. And all of this, for the audience, right. Everything, these conversations is to tie in, being disruptive to driving innovation. Right. And in our business place, there's staggering research, and there are numbers that quantify the impact of good communication. Take us through some of that when you did the research and you started putting the puzzle together and went, oh my God, this is huge.
Yes. So business leaders estimate that groups lose 1 day per week from poor communication. And they also figured out that if you have an employee that earns $100,000, for example, they lose that particular individual will cost you $18,000 and change for poor communication skills. That means that they lose 18% of someone's salary, regardless of the salary, for the most part. And those are business leaders making this estimate. There are studies that show that most training programs do not stick because the way that they're designed, nothing really goes in there and gives you a comprehensive system for how do you address a conflict. And conflicts, if you look at the numbers about how conflicts get resolved, they will tell you that the majority of leaders will say that even after the training, it doesn't stick and conflicts and tensions still exist. So how do you resolve something if you don't have a resource for making that happen? You don't.
Let's talk about that a little bit, the conflict piece, because conflict happens. Conflict can be very healthy, right?
Totally.
We work through different perspectives, just different points of view, because everybody's looking at things from their own unique perspective.
Right.
Excuse me. As we go through that, there's healthy ways to resolve conflict. And obviously there are the ways that we're all thinking about in our head right now, the yelling, the screaming, the tantrums, whatever it may be, that would be the less than healthy. But conflict is a natural part of human interaction. Without it, we wouldn't innovate. We would not move forward. We would be stalled in so many ways. So in the program, resolving conflict has to be a critical foundational component.
Yes. My program is called the Communication Protocol, first of all, and that is the online course for workshops, for the workplace, small, large, whatever, nonprofits. The key is that I don't talk about conflicts until I think it's lesson 4 out of the 8, because I want you to understand how you get to a point of having a conflict, so that by the time you learn how to resolve a conflict, it makes sense. It's as a practical measure. And I actually give an example of if you and I are having a conversation and you say something to me and I don't like it. And so I'll use my hands because I can. So you say something and then I don't stay here. I'm annoyed. So I go here. And then your next move typically is going to be here because you don't like what I said, or you don't like how I said it, or how I made you feel, or whatever your reason is. So this is how we escalate. But what if you say something and I say something, and then you, in seeing that I was elevated, know once you make this next move, it's almost like a chess match, so to speak, I'm going here. But the bigger picture is more important than making that statement to be right, or to make your point, or to put the other person down. So the statement that you make is ownership of whatever just took place. for the sake of the project, the relationship, your paycheck, the business, your marriage, whatever it is. There's this logic that prevails where you become relational in that moment. It's not just an I messaging of what I want to get across during this particular disagreement. So I'm looking for more of an opportunity to have a conversation with you and hear what you're saying, because in that moment you are not feeling heard, and I need you to feel heard so we can come to some sort of agreement, for lack of a better word, and move on.
So, in that, the little gem that you're sharing with us, Debra, right? In that exchange where conflict is building and growing, right? We tend to rise to it and then try to overstate it, right? It grows, it gets bigger, and we're stepping it up,
Right.
And the key for success in navigating this space is to get to the point where we have that aha moment, and we don't rise to the next level, and we acknowledge where we're at so that we're bringing it back to the conversation, to the topic, that every person is being heard and acknowledged, but we can come back to the topic and not continually one-upmanship that leads to uglier discourse.
Not a good ending, right?
There's the simple answer. The not a good, not the happy place.
Not the happy place.
Not the happy place. And, and we think, I think that I am sometimes capable at doing that. And I also have to own that I'm human, and I have my moments where I want to be right, because in that moment, that's important.
Me too.
And that's, right. We have to understanding and having that moment of, right isn't necessarily the goal here, right? Mutual outcome that benefits all is the goal. Conflict. It happens every day, and we're very bad at handling it.
Yeah.
When we're talking about communications and how they, communication is in your words, right? This is the prerequisite to anything else that we would do in our business. If we have this shored up, we really should be able to grow and do anything in our business. What are some of the symptoms that we might experience that communication is a challenge in our environment?
I love that question. So when I talk about communication challenges, I start with usually explaining, if you think of a team and there's one person on the team that could be considered challenging or difficult for whatever reason, they don't play well with others, they take over, whatever, they're too emotional, pick a thing, pick an archetype. If that person doesn't feel heard, or their whole MO is to be difficult because they want to take over, they want to be in control, or they are ticked off or bored, and the leader doesn't know how to address them in a good way that everybody else in that room recognizes that someone is in charge, then that person has free will to do whatever they want to do. The leader is seen as weak. They're seen as someone who either is disconnected or doesn't care. And the person and the leader themselves, once they realize that they're not in control of the situation, they feel ill-equipped. Oftentimes they're not trained. They're managers who are placed in a position that they're not really ready to be in, or they haven't been trained about how to initiate a conversation and how to correctly or politely in some fashion get that person to realize that this isn't their show. And so what happens is you have a leader who's ineffective, that has reverberations. You have now, however large that team is, a group of people who have lost time. They are ticked off or frustrated or feeling uncared for, and that their voice doesn't matter because no one is attending to this situation. That is just one person. And if I hear one more scenario of that happens in an organization, where then what happens is, if the big person in charge isn't the person that's leading the group, if they don't attend to it, then everybody looks at the CEO or the person above them, whomever it is, as also ineffective, in that this whole company, nobody really does anything here. And everything affects the culture, the entire workplace environment, the ability to collaborate, because why bother? And if you have a whole group of people that are doing that, they start to disconnect, they start to disengage. You're talking about retention, engagement, collaboration. How's that?
It's absolutely perfect, right? The story, and there are statistics and there's research that supports all of this. But in a workplace environment, employees take their cues from their direct supervisor.
That's right.
Right. And you watch how that interaction how that works. And if it isn't working, right, they go and they look to the next person up that hierarchy. But when all is said and done, and you walked us right through this, it's the tone at the top that will measure whether or not that organization is seen as effective. And if what we're seeing and hearing from the CEO or the owner in a smaller business down through each level,
that's right,
is in line with each other, as aligned and supportive, we will build a healthy culture. We will see that opportunity, that problems, conflict is resolved with positive outcomes. Changes.
Yes.
Right? And we have the ability to change.
Yes.
If we have disconnect, it all falls apart.
Correct. I will add that with my program, one of the things that we have added is we will say to leadership, it is your job to tell all the people that you want to participate in this program that you back this, that you're either taking it and or that you value communication, which also means that you value them because they're universal skills. These are long-lasting skills. They're not learning something. They're not learning this little segment of how to be more persuasive or how to, resolve an escalating argument. This is really teaching them something that they can use at home. And a happy person at home, less stress at home, is going to be less stress at work. So it really does affect the mental health of the entire organization, but it all stems from leadership. If they don't seem interested, if the person leading the team that's also in the program really isn't really doing it, isn't as interested, why would I do it then if I'm a member of that team? I absolutely take my lead from you.
Absolutely. And so the impact of this is, it is a group effort. Mm-hmm. Everybody should sort of go through this experience together, right? Because then we learn by doing, and we can apply what we've learned with people who are learning and understanding what we're applying, right? We're not doing this in a vacuum. And we're not asking that one naughty, disruptive person to go off and become a better communicator or else.
It's all your fault.
It's all your fault. But as a team, we're growing and stretching and evolving and becoming a better collective group, which impacts everybody at home, at work, the teams around us, right? Because then this starts to populate and cross-pollinate, because if we start in a team and results improve, right, and relationships and culture in that one space improve, teams around it are going to want more of that.
That's right. And that's really what happens. I mean, sometimes we have entire organizations taking the program and they break up in groups, sometimes in their teams and sometimes not. Sometimes they like to intermingle because it's community. It's everybody in this organization. And it speaks to the organization caring about its employees, as far as I'm concerned. You want to talk about your reputation in the community and with your stakeholders? Let them know you care about your employees. And also, I know you mentioned the prerequisite piece. I mean, think about all the trainings that come into an organization that require hard conversations. You cannot have a hard conversation if you don't feel confident about what to do, if you don't get a great response, or how to bring it up, or if you're a manager and you notice something and you're not sure how to address it. That whole training was useless. But if you have the basic core of how do we talk to each other? How do we bring up topics? How do we build trust and this sense of unity in the organization? It's all good stuff and just makes me happy.
It does. And I'm sorry, as we're talking through this, I was having a memory back to being a new manager for the first time and delivering a less than stellar performance review for the first time, right? And I will own it, right? I did it poorly. Right? Nothing about that went well. But if we'd had these skills, right? If the investment had been in as a new manager, right? You have to learn how to communicate difficult topics, and performance isn't always going to be awesome. And there are healthy ways and good productive ways to have those conversations that at that stage I had never seen or heard. And I'll even push it so far as I hadn't had great managers who had those skills and that knowledge. So I didn't have anybody to mirror. And wouldn't it be so much different if we actually invested in these skills? And we've been talking a lot about your program without talking about the program. It's not like we're talking about a master's degree commitment of time and money.
No. No.
Describe the program itself, kind of how long it is and what it takes to go, to work through it.
Sure. So the program is the communication protocol. It is 8 lessons. They're 20 minutes each. And the beauty of it is, if you remember, I have a mental health background and a business consulting background. So I realized that what do people need? And what they need are self-awareness skills. They need to know how to understand themselves, the impact they have on other people, and also the impact of what's going on, the energy of what's going on between two people while they're having a conversation. So I want you to be the best communicator that you can be. Then I teach you the foundational, elements of the model. So they learn my proven system. It's proprietary. The whole program is proprietary and it's interactive. We recommend that they have weekly meetings to talk about the lessons. If they can't do it, we can support them in doing it. And then the last lesson is a master class. It's life strategies for wellness, where they learn coping skills. Because if you think of what's going on in the world today, everything is changing. And even if it's not about all the drama and the awfulness that's taking place at times in our world or different events that affect us, just at work, it's stressful, or you're not getting along with someone. So it's coping, it's creating a more resilient staff that can pivot when they need to, that can support each other when they need to, that can communicate around things that are bothering them, or if they need to take some time off. I want people to be able to handle overwhelm, handle stress, know how to breathe through it. And also if they're having a lot of negative self-talk, what they can do about it. So we support the beginning of opening up their awareness and knowing how to communicate around everything from bringing up a topic to showing your commitment at work. How do you resolve difficult conflicts? And it also comes from the place of being an employee and being in a leadership position. A lot of examples. So we cover a lot of information. It's a lot to absorb, but it's nothing fancy. I don't even think there's a 4-syllable word in there anywhere. It's easy, practical stuff. That's why for 20 years, I just thought everyone was doing what I was doing when I was learning how to work with people. And it's so practical that I assumed that this couldn't be something that everybody already had in their own toolbox, but they don't. And that's the key, that we want everybody to be better communicators so they can feel more capable and confident in themselves and show up. I want people to feel like they're in the driver's seat of their life, so that they can show up at that office or show up at home and be the best version of themselves. And that's what a program like this can offer them. And that sounds like a big hoopla, but it's a rather simple building process that takes place. And it's pretty cool to watch the transformations.
And right, it's very cool. 8 weeks, 8 lessons. This is all their bite-sized learning opportunities.
Digestible.
Right. They're digestible, supported with workbooks and tools so that from an adult learning perspective, you've shared this, right? You're hitting on all of the different ways that we learn and retain information. Debra, we're talking a lot about, all of the positive of this, but it's still not necessarily an easy journey. Do you have any examples, roadblocks, setbacks that people have experienced while going through this, and how you navigate through to, stay on that course of getting to the positive outcomes?
We have, of course, nothing about working with people and helping people to become better communicators has a linear path. Life gets in the way. We've had companies that started the program and then had a major tech failure with ransomware where they had to stop the program. And so we stopped. But we picked it right back up, and I met with them. I jumped in there with them to help them get back on track, offered to, let's start where you left off or go back to the beginning. What do you need to do? How can we support you? So that's a dramatic version of a story. But there are also situations where companies will have a meeting and it doesn't go well. And they will say, you know what? Are we using what we learned? I don't know if we're using what we learned. And they'll meet again. And they'll say, okay, this is what happened last time. But remember what we learned in lesson 4 about how to introduce a topic and what to do if we don't like what the other person said, and how, all that good stuff. And everybody said it was the most amazing meeting after that. And the leader said to me, I always dread these meetings because they are not my meetings, but the particular meetings at their company. And she said, it's so painful because they never go well, lots of personalities. And now everybody feels heard. She doesn't feel like she has to have the answers to everything. It's much more of a give and take. And the point for her was I, as a leader, learned that I can listen and I can say, I'm not sure. Does anyone else have an answer for you? That was really hard for her to do before taking a program like this and realizing that nobody's expected to be perfect and nobody's expected to know everything, but you are expected to listen and care about what's going on for the people in the room that you work with, that you are attending to, whether it's a customer. How do you connect with their experience? And that's a lot of where people start to realize that they are angry. They don't realize that they came across really aggressively for a long time. And after doing something like this and people giving them feedback and not liking it, they kind of took a step back and went over a couple of the lessons that were more informative about really looking at yourself and how you respond. And the worksheets are questions get to prompt you and get you thinking. So those kinds of things where it's just a learning process, because it's a matter of taking a lot of information and figuring out, how does this apply to me? How do I show up at home? I mean, I had one person say to me, I didn't realize I yell at my kids all the time.
That's a huge epiphany.
Huge.
I mean, seriously, that is transformational.
That's the kind of stuff that happens because we're just talking about communication. And I don't care if you're talking about your colleague or your mother-in-law. And I say to them, you don't have to like the person that you're talking to, but you have to show up in a certain way so that you can get to the outcome that you are hoping to achieve.
Or the common ground outcome where both of you are satisfied with it.
Hopeful, yes. That went without saying, but yes.
I don't know, right? I'm taking nothing at, no
I like
assumptions
that.
about
I
what
appreciate
people are for. And so with this, Debra, right, you've told us, right, more than 20 years has gone into the making of this. And I'm assuming, right, you've seen the transformations through that. But as you have this now as online coursework and you're able to get it out to larger populations, looking to the future, what are some of those opportunities that you see for businesses as they own and become better communicators inside? What does this mean for us going forward?
The mission of my company is to make the world a kinder, more peaceful place where we can talk to each other, even about our differences. Imagine if we could actually do that. And right now, that doesn't seem to be happening in companies, in our country, in the world at times. And so if you think about the opportunity that we have, each individual, each leader to support their people, and as an individual to even take a program like this and put your heart in it and realize the impact that you can have with your family, with your friendships, with your colleagues, and everybody around you. We each we can only control ourselves. And so to be able to bring something like this into the world and make the world a better place, that's the legacy that I want to be able to leave in this world, because it's a powerful message.
It is a powerful message, and it aligns so beautifully with this program, right? We are here to disrupt by challenging the status quo to make a positive impact.
Positive impact.
Positive impact, and our ability to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
And to navigate through discourse that is not necessarily always in alignment with our own personal beliefs and values.
Right.
One person at a time can make a difference and make the world a kinder place. I love that vision, Debra. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your perspective. If members of the audience are interested in learning more, where should they go? What are the websites that are important?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, Debra, Debra Roberts. My website right now, we are changing it, but right now it's the relationshipprotocol.com. They can go to the communicationprotocol.com also directly. And I'm happy to go in and talk with companies and support them in any way that they feel could benefit from improving communication, because everybody has different needs depending on how their organization is structured. And we try to be flexible and respect that as well.
Absolutely fabulous. The URLs and all of that will be in the show notes for the audience. It'll be easy for you to find and be able to reach out to Debra as you need to go and look back at that. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate the alignment in, while we are not shaking things up, right? In this conversation, we're sort of calming them down to get to that positive impact. Debra, thank you for your time today. Audience members, you know the rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Every single week, one lucky listener that posts a review on iTunes will win the grand prize drawing, a $15,000 private VIP day with Lisa Levy. And be sure to head over to disruptandinnovate.com and get your free copy of Lisa's gift. And join us on our next episode.